Hi everyone, welcome to Red Fox Sewing and Crafting, and welcome to my craft room. I'm Joanna. So today I'm going to do a quick little tutorial on how I make my covers, my album covers. I have made the cover for each album in the tutorial for that album, but just to kind of make future tutorials a little bit quicker, a little bit shorter for YouTube, I am gonna make this video and then I will link it in all my future videos, and that way you can focus more on the album cover, get the information you need on that, and go on from there. So to make a basic album, you need 3 pieces of chipboard, you need a front and a back piece, and then a spine. And whenever I make my albums, I always cover my chipboard pieces with score tape. Score tape is just double-sided adhesive tape that's permanent and acid-free. It's good for making books and scrapbooking and stuff. So I like doing that to my chipboard. And then you need 2 pieces of cardstock that cover your front and back chipboards. 1 piece of cardstock to cover your spine piece, and then a piece of cardstock that will go over the spine in the middle, on the inside of your album. And then to make things easier, I like to use these. These are album making tools from Country Craft Creations, and I will link these down below if you are interested. They're basically templates to help place your chipboard on the cardstock in the right place. So this yellow one is a 1x1, and then this red one is a 1x1.5. Now I have some vinyl on these because it just helps me remember which one my spine template is. Excuse me. So I have a reminder here, a spine, to help me remember that this is my spine piece, my spine template. And then this one is just my other one. When folding the cardstock around the chipboard, I like using a bone folder and a burnishing tool. You don't have to use these if you don't have them or don't want to use them, but in my opinion, these do make your albums look more professional looking. And then you'll need a pair of scissors and some glue. This is Bearly Art glue. This is really good glue. I've been using it for probably a year now. I live in a cold climate, so the other main glue that scrapworkers use that I know of is our glitter glue, and that wouldn't work for me. But this is really good stuff, and I just have a pin in the top here to keep my tip clean and dry glue free. And then some more score tape for after I put my chipboard on my cardstock, I like to use score tape for additional steps. So let's make this. To start off, we are going to attach our chipboard to our cardstock. And sometimes I like using texture paper, and I just make sure that the right side of the texture is going on the outside. So if you see me kind of looking at the paper, that's what I'm doing. Then I'm just going to take my score tape backings off here. And I have my 1x1 here because this is the front cover, or one of the covers. So I'm just going to place this in the corner here. And the reason why you want to measure 1 inch on these sides is because you want to make sure to have 1 inch on all 4 sides of your front and back covers. And then for your spine, you want 1 inch on the top and the bottom, and then 1.5 inches on the 2 sides. Because front and back, you just wrap the paper around the chipboard, and then the 2 sides of your spine you'll use to attach to the front and back cover pieces. If that doesn't make sense, just watch until we get to that, and I will show you how all this works. I'm going to now do the other piece, the other cover piece. And again, my cardstock is 2 inches bigger than my chipboard piece because I want to wrap all 4 sides of the cardstock around the chipboard with 1 inch wrap around the whole thing. So now I'm done with this one. I'm going to switch over to my spine template here. And I have my cardstock. I'm going to place it just like this and attach my spine chipboard piece to the cardstock. Like so. Now, if you look, there's a little bit more space on the sides of my spine than the top and bottom. And on my cover pieces, all 4 sides are the same size. So now I like to take my chipboard and kind of bend the cardstock around the chipboard on my mat. So all I'm doing is pushing the chipboard down to the table and then just folding over. And that's just making the cardstock, it's creating a crease on the cardstock around the chipboard. And I'm going to do that to all 3 of my pieces. There, so now I have creases on this side where I can tell where my chipboard is. This step you don't have to do if you don't want to, but I like to take my bone folder and with the cardstock facing up, I take my bone folder and run it along the edge of the chipboard to give a crease on all 4 sides of the chipboard. This also helps a little bit with getting less cracks in making your album. So now there's just a little lip on all 4 sides of my chipboard. And I'm just going to do this to all 3 pieces. And I go over it probably like 3-4 times just to make sure that I get a nice crease there. And you don't want to press too much, otherwise you can potentially tear your cardstock. You don't want that. Now that I have my cardstock burnished around my chipboard, I'm going to work with my spine first. And when we folded the cardstock around the chipboard, we ended up with these 4 corners. And that's the same for all 3 of these pieces. We end up with 4 corners. For the spine, all we're going to do is cut from corner to corner, corner diagonally on all 4 corners. And we're just going to get rid of these corners. So you just want to go on all 4 sides and cut just the corners off, just like this. Okay? And I try to go along the diagonal of the corner squares or rectangles. Now, again, I like using score tape when building my albums. So, if you like using score tape, you can do that. If you don't want to use score tape, you don't have to use score tape. It's up to you what adhesive you like using. So when I use my score tape, I like to add a little bit to the top and bottom sides, just like this. And then I'm going to remove the backings off. And I just like doing this just to make things go a little faster. And then you want to take your glue and run it along the chipboard, along the top edge, and then about, I'd say 1 to like 1¼ inches down the side, like that. And then this section here at the top, I'm going to fill that in with glue. Just like so. And if you get a lot of glue on, that's good. So now I'm going to take my burnishing tool and I'm going to run it along the outside of my cardstock, along the chipboard, to kind of burnish the cardstock against the edge of my chipboard piece. And then just push the cardstock on top of the chipboard like so. And then we can burnish the cardstock like this and burnish it on the edges of the chipboard. And if you do get glue coming out, that is a good sign. That means you have enough glue to actually stick this piece down. And then you just want to burnish the rest of that cardstock down on top of itself, just like this. And then we're going to do it to the opposite side. So along the sides and the top, and then all along this top section. Then we're just going to burnish the cardstock along the chipboard and burnish it down. So now your spine piece should look like this. And we're going to flip this over. And after I get the top and bottom glued down to my chipboard, I like to go on the outside of my spine and just run my bone folder along the edges again, just to make sure that my my burnishing is really good on the edges, just like that. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and, starting at the corner of the chipboard, I'm going to cut a slight angle off of my cardstock, just like that. I want to do it to all 4 corners. And that just makes your spine not peek out from the cover pieces. And then last step for the spine before it's prepped is I like to take some score tape and then about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the chipboard, I like to put a couple pieces right along the edge, just like this. So you have the chipboard edge right here, and then the score tape is about 1/8 to 1/4 inch away. And the score tape helps adhere the spine to the cover pieces, and then leaving a gap, make sure that you don't see any adhesive peeking out in the folded section. So now the spine is done, and we can work on these two pieces. We again have our 4 corners on our cover pieces, but this time with our corners, we're going to cut the full corner out, and then we're going to miter about, let's say, 1/4 to 1/2 inch away from the corner, just like that. So I'm going to cut the corners out. And you want to go right to the corner. So all my corners are cut out, and I'm going to go back and miter those 2 corners like so. And you want to keep the miter a little far, about 1/4 to 1/2 inch away from the corner, so that you still keep that corner cut on the edges. So then this is how your piece should look. If you're using score tape, we're going to add score tape on all 4 edges. Just like so. And then we can remove the backing. When I wrap my front and back pieces, I always like to start with the sides, so that when the spine is put on, it can lock the top and bottom down a little bit to help the cardstock stay on the chipboard better. So for my album, this is the size of my spine, so I'm going to work with the short sides of my cover pieces first. So with your adhesive, with your glue, just want to run a bead of glue along the edge of the chipboard, just like this. I'm going to take my burnishing tool, and just like with the spine, going to run it along the edge of the chipboard on the outside of my cardstock. And then we're just going to burnish this along the chipboard, just like so. Now we're going to go to the opposite side and do the same thing. And putting that bead of glue along the edge of the chipboard helps soften the fibers of the paper so that you get little to no cracking when you fold the edges over. On the top and bottom of my cover pieces, I like to add a bead of glue along the chipboard edge, like this. And then I like to add a little bit of glue. There we go. A little bit of glue to the edges, or the corners of the tab, like this, so that they stick down and don't peel up. So I'm going to run a bead of glue again, just to make sure that I have glue along the edge. There we go. And then we're just going to burnish this and then stick it down. Again, I'm going to run a bead of glue along the edge of the chipboard. My glue cooperates. And then some glue on the corners. And then burnish it and stick it down. So this is how it should look. And then now I'm going to show you again. So going to cut out the 4 corners. Like this. Then go back around and miter those corners that you just made. So your piece looks like this. Using score tape, you're going along the edges of our tabs. Then we can remove the backings. And starting with the sides, I'm going to add glue to the edge of the chipboard. Burnish it, and then stick it down. I'm going to do the opposite side, adding our glue. Burnish, stick it down, and then top and bottom, adding glue to the edge and the corners. And then our last side. So, all three of our chipboard pieces are wrapped. Before we move on to the next step, I like to make sure that my cardstock corners aren't peeking out from the edges. So I just kind of go to all four corners to see if they're peeking out. And if they are, then I go and just trim a tiny bit off. You don't have to cut off very much, just enough that you don't see it anymore. And once you're happy with it, we can move on to the next step. This part I like using my scoreboard for, and I'm going to turn it to the side. Gonna start with one of our cover pieces, and this piece is going to be the front. Going to take a writing tool and just write top at the top of it. I usually do it at the top left corner because then it doesn't get covered up by the spine tab, and it's a place that I tend to look at every time I look on the inside. Next, we want our spine, and we're going to remove the backing off of just one side this time. And you want to add your adhesive, your glue, to just the top of your score tape, or if you're not using score tape, about 1/8 to 1/4 inch away from the edge. Because again, you do not want your glue to be oozing out from the connection. You don't want to see any adhesive coming out. So I have my glue, and I'm going to hold the tab up with one hand, and then I'm going to push down on the chipboard part of my spine with the other hand, pushing my cover to the corner of my scoreboard, and then pushing my spine against my cover like this. And then I'm lightly sticking my tab down, and then carefully fold your spine over and check to see if it lines up. You want the edge of your spine to be flush with the edge of your cover piece. If they are, open it up and burnish your tab down really well. If not, then you just need to carefully rip them apart and retry. But once you get the hang of it, you can pretty easily get it to be even with each other. But with everything else, it just takes practice. Our next piece, our back, is going to go on the other side. So I just flipped my scoreboard around to the other side, and now I have this piece pushed down to the bottom right corner here. And now I'm going to remove the backings off of my score tape here and add some more glue. And then again, I'm holding my tab up with one hand, pushing my cover piece to the bottom corner, and I have my other hand pushing down on the spine and pushing the spine towards the cover. And then lightly press down on the tab, and then you can carefully fold the cover down to make sure that it's even. And that looks pretty good. So then I'm going to take my burnishing tool and just burnish this really well. And here's the base of your album done. We are not totally done with it yet though. We still have our inner spine cover piece. So I'm going to quickly add some score tape to the back of my cardstock here. Okay, so I have this covered, and I have my outside cover. So what I need to do is make sure that my inside cover spine is going the right direction, and the inside spine cover, I cut 1/8 of an inch smaller than what my spine is. So for this album, my spine is 5 1/4, and then my inside spine cover is 5 1/8. Width-wise, I try to do 1 inch bigger than the paper that I used to cover my spine with. So the paper I used is 5 inches. So this piece is 6 inches wide. So we're just going to take the backings off really quick. And then with my glue, I like to add it on all 4 edges first, because then I know that the edges will stick down. And then I'll just add some glue to the inside. Like so. So then you want to line it up both ways as even as you possibly can, like this, and then just stick it down. And I like to use my burnishing tool to get it really stuck down really well. And then take your bone folder, and I like to put my hand underneath my cover like this, and then with my other hand I'm holding my bone folder, and then you want to find the crease of where your cover meets your spine. So take your bone folder and just kind of guide it along that fold. But you don't want to push too much. You don't want to make any holes or anything. You just want to make kind of a crease there. And then while you're kind of burnishing the cover into that fold, you want to slowly raise up your cover just like this. Ooh. To make sure that you can close it. And that once you get to a point where you can't fold it down anymore while you're burnishing, stop burnishing and just carefully, slowly fold it all the way down. And then you have a nice creased edge. You might get some cracking, and that is okay. You can just take a little bit of glue on your finger, and actually I have some cracks. So just take a little bit of glue on your finger like this, and then just run it along the crack. And then the glue will help stop the crack from getting any bigger. So I'm going to switch to my other side, and I'm going to do the same thing. I have my cover in one hand and my bone folder in the other. I'm going to find where the crease is and slowly, carefully burnish it while folding closed my album cover. And there you go. Have a little bit of cracking, which isn't too bad. Like I said, just cover it up with glue and it'll be perfectly fine. So here is your album cover, all ready for you to make another wonderful album. I hope you liked this little tutorial. If you did, click the like button down below. And if you want to see more of these, if you want to see me make albums with these types of covers, hit subscribe. I will see you next time. Bye!